The rain came down in sheets, cold and merciless, like the world itself had turned against me. I stood on the front porch of the only home I had ever known. My old suitcase already soaked, water streaming off the handle and pooling around my sneakers. My teeth chattered. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a fist. "Lily, just go," my father said, his voice barely louder than the downpour. He wouldn't even look at me. Behind him, Vanessa rested one hand on her swollen belly. 6 months pregnant with the child she kept calling ours. Her smile was small, almost pitying. "This house isn't big enough for the baby. We need your room. You're 21 now, sweetheart. Time to stand on your own feet." Sweetheart. The word tasted like poison. 5 years ago, she had smiled the same way when she married Dad after Mom died. Now that smile was a knife. I tried to speak, but my throat closed. All I managed was a broken whisper. "Dad, please." He closed the door. The lock clicked. A second later, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Vanessa. "Don't come back. Ever." I dragged the suitcase down the steps. The wheels splashed through puddles that reflected the streetlights like broken glass. The rain soaked through my jacket, my shirt, my skin, straight into my bones. I walked for hours that night. No destination. Just the sound of my own footsteps and the echo of her words. For her own child, I had become the obstacle standing between Vanessa and the perfect little family she wanted. The next weeks blurred into a nightmare I still can't fully wake from. I slept in a shelter the first 3 nights, the smell of bleach and strangers' fear thick in the air. After that, even the shelter was full. I spent 2 nights on a park bench, curled inside my thin coat, while the wind howled and strangers walked past like I was already invisible. Hunger gnawed at my stomach until it felt like a living thing. I sold the few pieces of jewelry Mom had left me just to eat. Every morning I woke up colder, more hopeless. One rainy afternoon, scrolling through my phone in a cheap internet cafe, I saw the ad. Fixer. Upper homes for $5, city revitalization program. The photo showed a faded Victorian house on the edge of town, windows boarded, paint peeling like old skin. Most people scrolled past. I didn't. $5. A roof. A door I could lock. My hands shook as I filled out the form with the last of my savings and a tiny loan I knew I'd regret. 2 days later, I owned it. The house waited for me at the end of a quiet, overgrown street. When I pushed open the heavy front door the first time, the smell hit me: damp wood, mold, dust, thick enough to taste. Cobwebs brushed my face like cold fingers. The floorboards groaned under my weight as if the house itself was sighing in pain. Wind slipped through cracks in the windows, carrying a low, mournful whistle. I stood in the dim hallway and whispered, "This is mine now." It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like the last desperate grab at survival. I spent the first days scrubbing on my knees, bleach stinging my eyes, my back aching. I patched holes with cardboard and tape, painted walls with cheap white I bought on sale. At night, the house came alive. Floorboards creaked upstairs even when I was downstairs. A soft tapping sounded behind the walls, like fingernails. I told myself it was just the old pipes, just the wind, but deep down I knew something was watching. On the 5th night, I climbed into the attic, flashlight in hand, looking for anything I could sell. In the far corner sat an old trunk, lid heavy with dust. I pried it open. Inside were photographs. My heart stopped. The woman in every picture was Vanessa, younger, sharper smile. Same cold eyes, standing in this exact living room, with a man I had never seen. They looked happy. Too happy. Under the photos lay a leather diary, pages yellowed. Handwriting I recognized instantly. I sat on the dusty floor and read by flashlight. Entry after entry spilled out her life from 10 years ago. "I can't breathe in this house anymore," she wrote. "He watches every penny. The baby cries all night. I need out." Then later, "I fixed the problem. He drank the tea. Slept forever. Insurance check comes next week." My stomach turned. I kept reading, breath shallow. She had poisoned her first husband right here in this house. Collected the money and disappeared, leaving everything to rot. The house had been abandoned ever since, but the final pages were what broke me. Dated only 3 years ago, right after she married Dad. Found him again. Widower. Daughter looks just like the one I left behind. Perfect cover. Once the girl is gone and the money is mine, I can finally live. And then, in fresh ink, pregnancy worked. She's packing tonight. The pregnancy was fake. All of it, the belly. The ultrasound pictures she showed Dad. The way she rubbed her stomach while glaring at me had been a lie to force me out. She needed me gone before I turned 21, and Dad's will automatically gave me half the inheritance Mom had left. The abandoned house wasn't random. It was her crime scene. Her dark past had been waiting for me the whole time. I didn't scream. I just sat there in the attic, while the wind howled louder, as if the house itself was finally exhaling the truth. My phone was in my hand before I even realized I was dialing Dad. When he answered, I read the diary entries out loud, voice shaking but steady. I told him about the trunk, the photos, the confession. He was silent for so long, I thought the line had died. Then he whispered, "I'm coming." Vanessa arrived first. She must have followed the location I accidentally shared when I called Dad. Her car screeched to a stop outside. She stormed in, belly still perfectly round under her coat. Eyes wild. "You little thief! You had no right to dig through my past!" I stood in the hallway, diary in one hand, phone recording in the other. "It was never your past, Vanessa. It was your crime. And you tried to bury me with it." She lunged for the diary. I stepped back. The floorboard I had loosened earlier cracked under her heel. She stumbled. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. Dad walked in behind her just as the police sirens rose in the distance. I had already called them. The next weeks moved like a slow, healing dream. Vanessa was arrested. The old case reopened. Dad sat across from me at the kitchen table in my now half-painted house, tears in his eyes, apologizing until his voice gave out. He had been blind. He had chosen the lie because it was easier than facing loneliness. But he chose me now. I kept the house. I fixed the leaks, replaced the windows, planted flowers in the front yard where weeds once grew. The mold smell is gone. The strange noises stopped, or maybe I just stopped being afraid of them. Some nights I sit on the porch with a cup of tea, the same kind Vanessa once used as a weapon, and I breathe in the scent of fresh paint and new beginnings. I was kicked out for a child that never existed. I found a house that held someone else's sins. But in the ruins, I found my own strength. Family isn't blood or marriage. It's the walls you choose to rebuild, the doors you refuse to lock against yourself. And for the first time in my life, I'm not running from the dark. I'm living in the light I made myself.